The African savanna stretched endlessly under the golden hues of a setting sun. In the heart of Sabi Sand, a young lion named Rasta roamed alongside his small pride. His mane, still growing, showed hints of the wild and unruly character that would later define him. Life was simple but unforgiving. Each day the pride fought to survive, scavenging what they could and protecting their fragile territory from intruders. Rasta, though young, had a restless spirit. He often wandered beyond the boundaries of their land, his curious eyes scanning the horizon for something more, though he couldn't yet name what he sought. The dry season had come, and with it, the challenges multiplied. Prey became scarce, and rival lions grew bolder, encroaching closer to Rasta's home. One evening, as the pride rested near a watering hole, the distant roars of intruding males echoed across the plains. Rasta's mother, a seasoned lioness, growled low, her ears pinned back. She nudged her cubs into the tall grass, urging them to hide. Rasta hesitated, his young heart pounding with both fear and fascination. The roars grew louder, closer, until the air felt heavy with danger. The intruders were 3 enormous males, their manes thick and dark, their eyes scanning the area with deadly intent. Rasta watched, hidden among the reeds as his father stood his ground. The battle was swift and brutal. Overwhelmed by the coalition, his father fell, his roars silenced forever. The lionesses fled with the cubs, leaving behind their territory and the life they had known. For Rasta, it was a moment of awakening. Loss seared itself into his soul, and as he followed his family into the unknown, a seed of determination took root. He vowed that one day he would never run again. As the days turned into weeks, the small pride struggled to find safety. The once familiar lands were now hostile, with dangers lurking at every turn. Rasta, still young and inexperienced, watched. His mother lead them with unwavering resolve, but he could see the exhaustion in her eyes. Prey was scarce, and the constant threat of rival males loomed over them like a shadow. One evening, while the pride rested in a patch of thick brush, a lone male lion appeared on the horizon. He was older, his mane streaked with age and battle scars, yet his presence radiated power. His name was Makulu, a lion who had roamed far and wide, and he was no stranger to the struggles of survival. Makulu approached cautiously, his deep growl sending a warning to the lionesses, but instead of challenging them, he offered something unexpected: an alliance. Makulu spoke of a coalition he was forming with other young males. Together, he promised, they could take control of the land, claim territory, and protect their future. For Rasta, the words ignited something within him, a chance to rise above the helplessness he had felt as a cub, a chance to become stronger than he ever imagined. But the idea of leaving his family behind, of stepping into an uncertain and dangerous journey, filled him with doubt. Hello guys, if you like our stories and haven't subscribed yet, support our work and subscribe to the channel to help us. Makulu's piercing gaze fell on Rasta. You have potential, he said, his voice firm but steady. But to fulfill it, you must be willing to leave behind what you know. The savannah rewards the bold. Rasta's heart raced at the challenge, and for the first time, he began to wonder if his destiny lay beyond the safety of his mother's shadow. Rasta felt the weight of Makulu's words, but fear gripped him. He couldn't imagine leaving his mother and siblings behind. They were all he had left. That night, as the pride rested under the dim light of the crescent moon, Rasta lay awake, his mind racing. The thought of venturing into the unknown, of facing the dangers of the savannah without his family, was terrifying. He told himself it was safer to stay, to remain in the comfort of the small pride that had survived so much together. The next morning, as the sun rose over the plains, Makulu lingered at the edge of their resting spot, waiting for Rasta's decision. But Rasta avoided his gaze. "I can't leave them," he finally muttered to himself, though his voice lacked conviction. He stayed close to his mother, watching as Makulu turned and disappeared into the golden grasslands without a word. A sense of relief washed over him, but it was quickly replaced by a pang of regret he couldn't quite understand. Days passed, and the pride continued their aimless wandering, struggling to find enough food to sustain themselves. Rasta began to notice how vulnerable they had become. They were hunted not just by rival lions, but by the relentless hunger of the savannah itself. One night, as he watched his siblings shivering in the cold and his mother's weakened frame silhouetted against the moonlight, doubt crept in. Perhaps Makulu had been right. Perhaps staying was not safety, but stagnation. Rasta pushed the thought aside, unwilling to admit that he might have made the wrong choice. Rasta's doubts grew with each passing day. The savannah was unyielding, and his pride grew weaker. One fateful evening, as the pride rested near a dry riverbed, a familiar figure emerged from the tall grass. It was Makulu, his imposing frame silhouetted by the setting sun. This time, he was not alone. Two other young lions flanked him, their manes just beginning to thicken, their eyes sharp with determination. Makulu stopped a short distance from the pride, his gaze settling on Rasta. "You stayed," he said, his deep voice carrying no judgment, only understanding. "But you're still here because you know you're meant for more." Rasta hesitated, his ears twitching nervously. "I can't leave them," he replied, glancing at his mother and siblings. Makulu took a step closer, his movements slow and deliberate. "Strength isn't about holding on to what's familiar," he said. "It's about making hard choices to ensure survival, for yourself and for those who depend on you. If you stay here, you'll wither with them. But if you come with me, you'll learn how to fight, how to lead, how to protect." One of the younger lions behind Makulu stepped forward. "We all lost something, Rasta," he said, "but together we've gained a chance to take back what was stolen from us." Rasta's heart pounded. He looked at his mother, who met his gaze with weary eyes. There was no anger, only resignation. She seemed to understand that Rasta's path was diverging from theirs. With a heavy heart, Rasta stepped forward. Makulu nodded approvingly. "You've made the right choice," he said. "Your journey begins now." As Rasta joined the small coalition, he felt a strange mix of fear and excitement. He didn't know what lay ahead, but for the first time, he felt a glimmer of hope, a chance to become the lion he was destined to be. The savannah felt different as Rasta walked beside Makulu and the other young lions. The air was charged with an unfamiliar energy, both exhilarating and daunting. He had left the comfort of his pride behind, stepping into a world where survival would depend not just on strength but on cunning and courage. Every rustle in the grass, every shadow cast by the setting sun felt like a potential threat. Yet for the first time, he wasn't alone. He was part of something bigger. Makulu led them through unfamiliar territory, teaching them the skills they would need to thrive as a coalition. He showed them how to move silently through the grass, how to read the patterns of prey, and how to work as a team. Rasta struggled at first. His instincts were sharp, but his inexperience showed in his hesitation. The other lions, more seasoned, corrected his mistakes with a mixture of patience and firm rebukes. Their first major test came one afternoon when they encountered a herd of buffalo. The massive animals grazed quietly, their horns glinting under the harsh sun. Makulu crouched low, signaling the others to follow his lead. "Buffalo are dangerous," he whispered, "but together we can take them." Rasta's heart raced as they crept closer. The scent of the herd was overpowering, and the ground seemed to vibrate beneath their hooves. When Makulu gave the signal, the coalition surged forward. Chaos erupted as the buffalo scattered, their bellows filling the air. Rasta followed Makulu's lead, targeting a lone buffalo separated from the herd. The hunt was brutal, a blur of dust and adrenaline. The buffalo fought back fiercely, but the coalition's coordinated attack eventually brought it down. As they feasted on their hard-earned kill, Rasta felt a surge of pride. For the first time, he had played a role in something greater, proving his worth to the coalition. The taste of victory was bittersweet, tinged with the realization that this was only the beginning. He was no longer the uncertain cub hiding in the grass. He had crossed the first threshold into a world of danger and opportunity, where every success would demand a new level of courage and determination. Rasta's days with the coalition turned into weeks, and the lessons came hard and fast. Every hunt, every confrontation, every moment was a test of his growing strength and resolve. The savannah was relentless, offering no reprieve to those who faltered. Makulu pushed them constantly, ensuring they grew stronger, faster, and smarter. The young lions began to bond, their differences melting away as they learned to rely on one another for survival. One of Rasta's closest allies became Kinky Tail, a lion known for his ferocity and unyielding determination. Kinky Tail took an interest in Rasta, often challenging him during sparring sessions to bring out his best. "You're fast, but speed won't save you in a real fight," he'd growl, knocking Rasta to the ground with a powerful swipe. Despite the harshness of his lessons, Rasta began to respect Kinky Tail's strength and the loyalty that lay beneath his tough exterior. But not all relationships were so easy. Mr. T, another lion in the coalition, was as aggressive as he was, unpredictable. His ambition was clear in every challenge, every display of dominance. He was quick to remind the others of his prowess, and Rasta often found himself on the receiving end of Mr. T's sharp temper. Tensions flared during hunts when Mr. T's impulsive behavior sometimes jeopardized their efforts. Yet even Mr. T, with all his flaws, proved to be a vital part of their coalition, his ruthlessness a weapon they would need in the battles to come. The coalition's growing reputation began to attract attention, both from allies and enemies. Rival males watched them with wary eyes, recognizing the threat they posed. The coalition quickly became known for their brutal efficiency, taking down not only prey but also any lion who dared to challenge them. One encounter with a pair of intruding males tested Rasta's mettle like never before. The fight was vicious, filled with roars and flying claws. Rasta held his ground, his mane now fuller, his strength undeniable. The intruders were driven off, their defeat marking a turning point in Rasta's journey. He was no longer just a follower, he was becoming a force to be reckoned with. Despite their growing dominance, the coalition faced constant reminders of the savannah's dangers. One night, a pack of hyenas circled their kill, their high-pitched cackles filling the air. The lions roared in defiance, but the hyenas, emboldened by their numbers, pressed forward. It was Rasta who leapt into the fray, his ferocity surprising even himself. With the coalition at his back, they drove the hyenas away, their unity proving stronger than any threat. Through these trials, Rasta began to understand the savannah's harsh truths. Strength alone wasn't enough to survive. It was the bond between him and his coalition that truly made them powerful. Each ally brought something unique, and even their enemies served to sharpen their skills. The tests were endless, but with every challenge overcome, Rasta grew closer to becoming the lion he was destined to be. The once uncertain cub now stood as a vital member of the coalition, his mane wild and unruly, a symbol of the strength and resilience he had forged through fire and blood. The coalition's dominance grew with every battle won and every new territory claimed. Together they controlled vast stretches of the savannah, pushing out rivals and expanding their reach. Rasta, now a powerful lion with a wild, distinctive mane, had fully earned his place among the group. Yet with power came new challenges, and the coalition began to feel the weight of their conquests. The constant need to defend their territory, maintain their alliances, and ward off growing threats created a tension that even their strength couldn't ease. Rasta often found himself reflecting during the quiet moments between battles. He would sit atop a hill, overlooking the endless grasslands, and wonder if their endless fight for dominance was truly worth the cost. The savannah was beautiful, but it was also unforgiving. Every step forward seemed to require a sacrifice, and Rasta began to feel the strain of the life they had chosen. He looked to Makulu for guidance, but even their leader carried the visible marks of their struggles, scars from countless battles and a weariness in his eyes that spoke of the price of leadership. It was during one such reflective moment that Rasta and the coalition encountered a pride they had previously displaced. Among the displaced lions were cubs, struggling to survive in the harsh environment they now called home. Rasta hesitated. As the coalition moved to chase them away once more, his instincts told him it was necessary, but something deeper made him pause. These lions, once proud and strong, were now shadows of their former selves, proof of the savannah's cruel cycle. Rasta's hesitation didn't go unnoticed. Kinky Tail, ever loyal, approached him later. "You're thinking too much," he said, his tone half teasing, half serious. "Out here it's kill or be killed. There's no room for doubt." But Rasta couldn't shake the feeling that their victories came at a cost greater than they realized. He began to see the savannah not as a place to conquer, but as a constant test of balance where every choice carried consequences. As the coalition pressed deeper into rival territory, Rasta felt a shift in the air. The savannah seemed quieter, the grass taller and the shadows longer. They were venturing into unknown lands where danger lurked in every corner. The closer they came to claiming ultimate dominance, the more Rasta realized they were walking a fine line between glory and destruction. The cave they approached wasn't a physical one. It was the precipice of their ambitions, where the line between predator and prey blurred, and where every step forward felt like a step into the unknown. The coalition's strength was tested as never before when they ventured deeper into the heart of a rival territory. It was a vast, fertile land, ruled by an older, seasoned coalition of 3 massive lions, each scarred by years of dominance. Makulu had learned of the territory's bounty, ample prey, reliable water sources, and strategic vantage points. If they could take it, it would solidify their control over the savannah. But this conquest would not come without a price. The battle began at dusk, under a sky painted in fiery hues. The rival coalition had no intention of yielding their land without a fight. Their roars echoed across the plains, a challenge that shook the air and sent smaller creatures scurrying for cover. Rasta stood shoulder to shoulder with his brothers, his mane wild and glinting in the fading light. This was not just another skirmish. It was a fight that would define their legacy or destroy them. The 2 coalitions clashed in a storm of teeth, claws, and fury. Dust rose around them, obscuring the battlefield in a chaotic blur of movement and sound. Makulu, as always, led the charge, his powerful frame driving into one of the rivals. Kinky Tail and Mr. T took on another, their ferocity unmatched. Rasta found himself face to face with the 3rd lion, a grizzled veteran with piercing eyes and a deep, guttural growl. The fight was brutal. The rival lion lunged at Rasta, their bodies colliding with a force that sent them rolling across the ground. Rasta's instincts, honed through years of training and experience, guided him as he dodged a swipe aimed at his throat. He countered with a strike of his own, his claws raking across the rival's flank. But the older lion was relentless. His strength forged through countless battles. Every move Rasta made was met with an equally fierce response, and the younger lion quickly realized he was outmatched in sheer power. As the battle raged on, Rasta saw Makulu falter, pinned by the rival leader. Kinky Tail and Mr. T were holding their ground, but the fight was taking its toll. Desperation surged through Rasta. He couldn't let them lose, not after everything they had fought for, everything they had sacrificed. Summoning every ounce of strength he had, Rasta launched himself at the rival leader, knocking him off Makulu and drawing his fury. The older lion turned on Rasta, their roars shaking the ground beneath them. The 2 clashed in a final, ferocious struggle. Rasta's muscles burned, his vision blurred by blood and sweat, but he refused to give in. He fought not just for himself, but for his coalition, for the future they had fought so hard to claim. Finally, with a roar that seemed to echo across the savannah, Rasta delivered a decisive blow. The rival lion stumbled, his strength failing, and retreated into the shadows. The coalition had won, but the victory was bittersweet. The battlefield was littered with the marks of their struggle, deep gashes, broken tufts of mane, and the lingering scent of blood. As the moon rose over the savannah, the coalition stood together, battered but victorious. Rasta, his body aching and his mane matted with dirt, looked at his brothers and felt a deep, unshakable bond. They had faced death and emerged stronger, their unity tested and proven. Yet as he gazed out over the land they had claimed, he couldn't shake the weight of what it had cost them. The savannah had exacted its toll, as it always did, and Rasta knew their greatest challenges were still to come. As the first light of dawn illuminated the savannah, the coalition stood atop a rocky outcrop overlooking their newly claimed territory. The land stretched endlessly before them, abundant with prey and vital resources. It was a prize that few coalitions could dream of, let alone take by force. For a moment, the world seemed to hold its breath, and in that silence, the magnitude of their victory settled over them. Rasta, his body still aching from the battle, felt a surge of pride as he gazed across the plains. This land wasn't just a reward, it was a testament to their strength, their unity, and their resolve. Every scar on his body, every loss they had endured, had led them to this moment. The coalition had risen above the chaos of the savannah, carving their legacy into its very soil. Makulu approached Rasta, his eyes filled with a rare warmth. "You fought like a lion worthy of this land," he said, his voice steady. "You've earned your place here, and you've ensured the future of our coalition." Rasta dipped his head, the weight of the words settling over him. This wasn't just his reward, it belonged to all of them. Together they had defied the odds and claimed a future. Yet, as Rasta stood in the glow of their triumph, he couldn't ignore a deeper truth. The savannah was never truly conquered. It was merely borrowed, a gift that demanded constant vigilance. Their reward was not just the land, but the lessons they had learned, the strength of their unity, and the resilience of their spirit. For now they would revel in their victory, knowing that it had come not from dominance alone, but from their bond as brothers. The days following their victory were filled with a cautious sense of peace. The coalition patrolled their new territory, marking the boundaries and ensuring their presence was known. Prey was plentiful, water was abundant, and the grasslands stretched far beyond what Rasta had ever imagined as a cub. Yet, despite the calm, the scars of their battle remained fresh, a reminder that the savannah's peace was always fleeting. Rasta often found himself reflecting on the journey that had brought them here. The once inexperienced cub, who had hesitated to leave his pride, was now a lion shaped by trials and sacrifice. He carried the weight of his experiences in every stride, his mane wild and untamed, a symbol of the struggles that had forged him. His brothers, too, bore the marks of their journey, each lion stronger and more steadfast than before. As they moved through the land, Rasta noticed the displaced prides they had once encountered. Some had retreated farther, others lingered cautiously at the edges of the coalition's reach. Rasta felt a pang of guilt for the lives disrupted in their pursuit of power, but he knew the savannah's rules were unyielding. Survival demanded difficult choices, and they had done what was necessary to endure. Returning to their rocky outcrop, one evening, Rasta looked out over the land they now called home. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and gold. He felt a sense of fulfillment, but also a quiet understanding. The journey wasn't over. The savannah would always test them, and they would need to remain vigilant. Together, they had carved their place into the wild, but the path forward would demand as much strength and unity as the path behind. The savannah, ever unpredictable, soon reminded the coalition of its relentless nature. One fateful evening, as the coalition rested near a waterhole, distant roars echoed across the plains. A new challenge was approaching, a coalition of younger, untested males seeking to stake their claim. The threat loomed, but this time Rasta did not feel fear. He had faced death, endured loss, and emerged stronger. He was no longer the uncertain cub who hid in the grass. He was a lion forged in the crucible of the savannah. As the rival coalition drew closer, Rasta led his brothers to confront them. His mane, wild and heavy with the dust of their territory, seemed to shimmer in the moonlight. The young males roared their challenge, but their inexperience was clear. Rasta stepped forward, his presence commanding, his roar shaking the air around them. The rivals hesitated, their confidence faltering under the weight of his defiance. In that moment, Rasta embodied more than just strength. He was a symbol of resilience, of the trials they had endured, and the unity that had carried them through. The rival males backed down, retreating into the darkness, unwilling to test their strength against a coalition so steadfast. As the savannah settled once more into silence, Rasta felt a renewed sense of purpose. His scars, both physical and emotional, were no longer marks of pain but symbols of survival. The savannah had tested him time and again, and each time he had risen. He was not just a lion of the coalition, he was its heart, a living testament to the power of perseverance and the will to overcome. The savannah stretched before them, vast and timeless, a land both beautiful and brutal. Rasta stood atop the rocky outcrop, his mane wild and untamed, flowing with the breeze that carried the sense of his hard-won territory. The coalition had achieved what many thought impossible, carving their legacy into the endless plains. But for Rasta, the journey wasn't just about dominance, it was about transformation. He looked at his brothers, each one marked by their trials, their unity forged through fire and sacrifice. Together, they had become more than a coalition. They were a force that represented the very essence of survival. The lessons they had learned, strength in unity, resilience in adversity, and the courage to face the unknown, were now etched into their beings. Those lessons weren't just for their survival, but for the generations that would follow. The younger lions in their shadow began to observe and learn. They mimicked Rasta's movements, watched his every decision, and found inspiration in his unyielding resolve. His wild mane, a mark of his individuality and struggle, became a symbol of the strength born from hardship. Through his leadership and the coalition's legacy, the savannah itself seemed to echo with the story of their triumphs and sacrifices. Rasta understood now that their legacy wasn't just the land they claimed or the battles they won. It was the knowledge they carried, the resilience they embodied, and the inspiration they passed on. The savannah was eternal, and while their time within it was fleeting, their story would live on in its whispers, carried by the winds and remembered by the lions who came after them. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of fire and gold, Rasta felt a quiet sense of fulfillment. The journey had been long and arduous, filled with loss and triumph, but it had brought him here to a place where he could stand tall, knowing he had given everything to protect his brothers and their future. His life was now more than survival. It was a legacy of strength, unity, and courage that would endure long after he was gone.